need a question answered about anything to do with the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community or legal questions, well, you have to ask our next guest, who I'm always glad to have on because I learn stuff, Kate Kendell.
Well, that's very high praise. Thank you. I'm really happy to be back, David.
You're here at a really, I wouldn't say auspicious time, but what an amazing time.
It's breathtaking.
I mean, we're about to get before the U.S. Supreme Court and have it decided, but at the same time, we have a governor of Indiana saying that we can legally be discriminated against, and oh, by the way, there's a guy in California who says that we can be shot.
Yeah.
I mean, WTF, pardon my French.
Yeah. No, WTF is right. But you know what? This is like the classic trajectory of every civil rights struggle. You make gains, you come to the attention of some of the most ardent opponents of those gains and of your equality, and they push back. I mean, we are in the middle of a very serious backlash, even as we are on the brink of, we hope, winning marriage equality in this country, and we have a level of unprecedented visibility and a sense of inclusion. It's you know, I mean, it's a tired Charles Dickens quote, but it is the best of times, but also the worst of times in some ways.
Did you, well, this is a stupid question, but it's an obvious one. Did you ever think we would be here this soon?
No. No. I would have, I mean, the worst moment of my career as a lawyer was the night we lost Prop 8. Which just was so devastating, especially because it came on the heels of the high point of my career when we won marriage in California. And at that moment, it just seemed to me that the idea that we would win marriage in this country was
on a federal level,
several decades off.
Right. Now, for those who maybe were too young when we started airing the show, Prop 8 was 2008.
Yep.
And that summer, in June, the California Supreme Court said that banning same-sex marriage was against the Constitution of California.
Exactly.
And within 6 months, the voters of the state said, nope, they were wrong. And I was one of those people who, along with my husband, got married in that little window.
Yep.
And it was devastating because I don't know about you, but I felt, well, how can you not take it personally? They're voting against me.
I think many people took it personally, and I remember having a discussion with our kids the morning after the sleepless night when Prop 8 passed, and the first thing I said to them is, we're okay. Yeah. Our family's going to be fine. We're okay. It felt to me like definitely a rejection of our humanity, not just a rejection of our relationships or rejection of marriage, but it felt like a rejection of our humanity. And I think because it struck people so deeply is why we had this catalytic outpouring of support all over the country from not just the LGBT community, but from our allies who also thought, whoa, wait a minute, I thought we were farther ahead than this.
I had more non-gay people calling me the next day going,
completely.
I'm really sorry.
Super shocked.
But shocked is a word. Do you think we got cocky? Did you get cocky in the campaign, you think?
Well, no, because, and this, in fact, looking back, this is one of the most frustrating things about the campaign. I do think in our community there was a lot of complacency where people felt like, oh, in fact, I remember asking people for money to support the Prop 8 campaign to defeat Prop 8, and people would say, oh, Kate, you know what? I mean, that just feels like a waste. I mean, of course we're going to win it.
It's a no-brainer. We're going to win it.
Keep in mind, I was seeing the polling. I was seeing the numbers. We were never ahead. And when that first, when the public poll came out that showed us 12 points ahead, I remember thinking, oh my, okay, that has just screwed everything up. And of course, you know, we all know that how it ended. We lost by 2 points, super close, but close enough to end marriage in California. And while I'll never say the passage of Prop 8 was a good thing, I will say, boy, did it wake up a
Well,
sleeping
you know,
giant.
it's funny. My dear friend, the late Anthony Turney, always used to say, it's an ill wind that doesn't blow someone some good. Was Prop 8 kind of that ill wind that made people say, you know what? We got some work to do.
Well, it led to the federal case that Olsen Boys took to challenge Prop 8. It led to a huge number of grassroots organizations springing up. It energized an entirely new generation of LGBT people who thought the fight was over. It re-energized allies, our straight allies, and people who cared about LGBT equality. And I actually believe, you know, a historian will write this and maybe determine whether it's accurate or not. But I do think the passage of Prop 8 and the aftermath led to really this now cascade of events.
You took away my next question. Would we be here within 2-3 months of what is clearly going to be one of the most important Supreme Court decisions of our lifetime, if not the last 50, 70 years. Would we be here without Prop 8?
I think not. Well, gosh, it's hard to say. Look, if we hadn't had Prop 8, we still have marriage in California, and then it would still trip along over time in states. I do think there's a fair case to be made that the Supreme Court wouldn't have heard any marriage case for probably several years hence. We'd still be winning in some states. There would still be some challenges, but the Supreme Court wouldn't have probably gotten involved as early.
Right.
You know, keep in mind, when they struck down Prop 8, they also struck down Section 2 of DOMA, and that was only 2 years ago. And then that led to a whole bunch of other states just jumping in and lawsuits being filed, you know,
Left and right,
all over, yeah, all over the place. And then when all of those cases went up to the court last year, when the court denied review last October, that meant that all of those circuit court rulings applying, striking down marriage bans were now in effect.
Right.
So we went from 19 states to 32 states like that, and now we're at 37 if you count Alabama, and we're still fighting in Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, what, there's like 2 lesbians or something married in Alabama, and they rule the rest illegal or something. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, look, this is a state where
I mean, I'm being flip.
They're barring, but it is crazy. It's true. It is crazy, and you know, they're barring the schoolhouse door. You know, they are trying
Alabama's
yet
done that
again
before.
to stand in the way of fairness and equality and justice. It just so happens that LGBT community is now in the line of fire.
Right.
But, you know, it's all over but the shouting as far as I'm concerned there.
Well, is it all over except for the shouting in front of the Supreme Court? Could something go wrong?
We're involved in the Supreme Court case. There are 4 states, Tennessee, Michigan, Kentucky, and Ohio. NCLR is involved in the Tennessee case. We are acting as if everything hangs in the balance, and there is as much a possibility as we'll lose as there is a possibility that we'll win. I do not see 5 justices, and that's all you need is 5, undoing the legacy of Romer versus Evans and Lawrence versus Texas and what they did in the Windsor case and what they did in getting rid of Prop 8. I do not see them making a U-turn on that arc, that trajectory of where we're heading, because if they do, if they ruled against us, they know we're coming back again. And so I think they're ready to be done with this issue. The question is it the broad ruling we want, which is in every state you can marry and every state must recognize your marriage, or is there some way they'll trim the sails a little bit of a full ruling?
And still get us to one step at a time.
Yeah.
Let's say they get the full ruling. We've only got a few minutes left, but I really want to talk about Indiana because it's up, and I think it caught so many people off guard. I mean, for Pete's sake, if Jan Brewer didn't sign the bill in Arizona, you kind of thought no one else is going to be enough of a whack job to do it, but Mike Pence jumped off that bridge. How would the Supreme Court case legalizing marriage equality affect things like that?
Well, what it would mean is you can get married in Indiana, or you can travel to Indiana as a married couple, and you can walk into the Waffle House on the corner, and you can be denied service. But it's much broader than that. You can be an interracial couple and walk into the Waffle House in Indiana and be denied service. The bill that passed in Indiana allows a person using religious faith as their belief, as their justification, to refuse to follow anything law.
So, hi, I don't like you, Kate, because, you know, your hair color is against my religion, so...
Yep. And it's, I think it's a draconian law. I think it's a huge step backward on everything we stand for as a country to protect the most vulnerable from being discriminated against based on who they are. But it also makes very clear, we may win marriage in June, but we're not done. There's still going to be a lot more work to do.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about, in our last few moments, this ballot initiative in California, the Sodomite Suppression Act. Does that have an Ice Cube's chance in Miami of getting on the ballot?
That is not going anywhere. I do not believe it will be on the ballot. And I even almost hesitate to give it any oxygen at all. This is clearly a very disturbed individual who wants to probably make a name for himself, believes that his faith traditions require the killing of people with whom he disagrees. I think he actually should read the New Testament, because I think he's well out of line with probably the person he considers his savior in terms of real teachings.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to say sort of, well, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would definitely not support this kind of a measure. And I think what Attorney General Harris is doing is exactly right, to go to the court and say, look, we have to be able to draw a decency line in the sand where not anything can get on the ballot, and certainly not something that would call for the execution of otherwise perfectly decent, law-abiding, citizens.
Yeah, I mean, because if it was on the ballot, it says basically you shoot and kill homosexuals.
That's what it says. If you find that they are sodomites, then you can execute them, and it's repellent in every way. And I think the idea that we are even having to have a discussion about whether it could be on the ballot or should be on the ballot points up the need to reform our ballot system. You shouldn't be able to have a ballot measure that calls for the execution of people based on anything.
Right. So maybe the the silver lining out of this thing will be the adjustment, the change of the California initiative process.
Yeah, maybe that, but I think even beyond that, I think what it does demonstrate for people, again, who think we're done.
We're not.
They know you got people like this out there. We've got to keep our pedal to the metal and realize that we're not finished yet.
Thanks, Kate. We've been speaking with Kate Kendell. We'll have her back on because there is more work to be done. We hope you'll tune in next week to watch us here on 10%. Thanks for watching. I'm David Perry. Good night.